Fantastic. Okay, some people can hear me and see me. Great. So I've got a lot of content to cover this evening. Thank you all for joining. Just a little bit of background for those who don't know. My name is Peter Daniel, and I have been a health researcher and questioner for over 15 years now, looking at the key things that create longevity and health in humans. And with my wife, I've written 2 books, Rawlicious and Superfoods. And the content I'm going to be covering this evening is taken from my workshop that I run every month or 2 called Soaring Free, the workshop. And this is the key. Today we're looking at food specifically. And I'm going to cover a lot of content, so I hope you guys have got pen and paper. I'm going to show you a few slides, if I can get them to work. So to begin with, I want to start with a background concept of what I'm going to be talking about. For a lot of people, health is very nebulous. You know, so many people are saying this about health, that about health. They don't know what's healthy or not, who to listen to. There's always a new fad diet. There's always something else coming out which is better. And this evening I'm really just going to get back to basics, and these basics have been set in motion a very long time ago. Health is really a very ancient practice. Our bodies have understood our world for a very long time. So this concept I call the continuum concept, although it's not my concept. I first heard about it from a book by Jean Liedloff called the continuum concept. And many people think it's a book on children, but it's an amazing book on how to live as humans. So she studied tribes in the Amazon jungle and noticed the way they lived, and noticed the way they treated their children and what they ate and how they worked, and then wrote the book on that. But the basic idea is that we have been in this form for a very long time, a hominid form, our ancestors in any case. And we have been interacting with our world, our environment, food, and everything else for a very long time. And the faster that we change in terms of what we're used to from a continuum concept, the more stressful it is on our systems. So when we're looking to be healthy, we're really looking at things that our ancestors have been doing for a very long time that have supported their health and allowed you to be alive right now. If our ancestors were not doing things for their health, then you wouldn't exist right now, because the human gene pool would have shrunk. So let me start by showing you guys this one, just to give you an idea of what I'm talking about. This is a timeline of our hominid ancestors, and you can see that modern man is right at the top of this. There are millions and millions of years of evolution that has gone into creating our current form. And if you look at something a little bit more recently, you're looking at, here's billions of years at the beginning, and then you can see we suddenly start going from apes to men, and then not very long ago, only 12,000 years ago, did we get into farming, and only a couple of hundred years ago did we get into the massive change the world has seen in terms of the Industrial Revolution. So a lot has happened in a very short space of time to humans. And the content I'm going to go through today is really just looking at what are the key factors. Now, one of the things to consider is that if you're looking at what's not healthy for you, we can just look at what has changed radically, and then we can tell how broken our continuum actually is. So a lot of people are currently concerned about coronavirus, and that asks the question about modern medicine and how effective it is. We're basically in a situation where, infectious diseases, cancer, diabetes, heart disease, and other chronic illnesses have just skyrocketed over the last 50 to 100 years. And just over 100 years ago, there were 2 theories related to medicine and what made people well. And the one is Pasteur's germ theory. Many of you are aware of that theory because that's the theory most commonly held to be true today. It basically says that there are germs and bugs and coronaviruses and things all over the place, and if you happen to be unlucky enough to catch them, then you get sick. Now, the interesting thing about this is that there's a different theory called the terrain theory. The terrain theory by Béchamp said that Yes, there might be things around that you could catch, but your body's internal state is really the factor at play whether or not you get healthy or get sick or not and stay healthy. So the one theory goes, you have no power, no control. There is a world of infinite harmful things that could attack you at any time. Nature is wanting to take you out constantly. And then there's the idea that actually your body's evolved in this world for a very, very long time. You've been exposed to, billion years of evolution to bacteria and viruses and everything else, and that your internal terrain is kept healthy when it's in line with that evolution. As soon as you start changing that terrain, start damaging that terrain, then you get ill. So that theory gives you some power. It lets you take control of your health. It lets you know that there are things you can do for your health. We also have a situation where since 2010 the microbiome was discovered, and more recently the microbiome. This basically is scientific proof that we are not at the mercy of forces outside of us, that our internal environment is absolutely key in how healthy or unhealthy we are. So about 99% of your genes are made up of viruses and bacteria. So, to be thoroughly concerned about viruses or bacteria is a little short-sighted. I mean, if you think about people and people dying on the planet, over 2,000 Americans die every week from properly prescribed medicine in properly prescribed doses. That's a lot of people dying from medicine. So I would certainly go towards natural health, natural healing, and eating for your health. So what is going on in the world of food? Let's look at how the continuum is broken there. I think I've got a slide there. So these are just a few statistics on farming. Obviously, for the last 50 to 100 years, farming has gone through a radical change. There are a lot more poisons being used on crops. The soil is also being radically depleted by constant farming. And so you end up with things like this. In 1997, 26 apples contained the same iron nutrition as one apple in 1914. Levels of trace minerals in fruit and vegetables fell up to 76% between 1940 and 1991. And there's 100% loss of vitamin A in a whole bunch of different foods in a 48-year span from 1951 to 1999. So we're looking at a massive drop in nutritional density in the food we're consuming. Now, if your body evolutionarily has been expecting a certain level of nutrient density in the food you're consuming, and suddenly over 50 years that drops to these degrees, that's obviously going to have a negative impact. People today are really starving, even though there's so much food around, and they're starving for specifically micronutrients. These are things like vitamins and minerals and phytonutrients. People get a lot of macronutrients, that's things like protein and carbohydrates and fats, but it's the micronutrients that really keep you healthy long term. There are some other issues with farming, things like factory farming. Many people are aware that animals are treated pretty badly. South Africans eat about 2.5 million chickens a day, and there are 26 million chickens confined to battery cages. The challenge there is that they get fed antibiotics and growth hormones. Beef, for example, is thoroughly rich in antibiotics in South Africa. Bovine growth hormone, which is banned in over 100 countries, is still used in South Africa. Over about 50% of farmers still use it. And this particular growth hormone has been linked to increased rates of colon, breast, and prostate cancer. So, insult to injury, not only is the food you're eating low in nutrients, but it's also full of poisons. And one of the other poisons that's common in food today, and it's actually so common that it's become food, is genetic modification of food. There are no independent safety studies that need to be done on GMO foods. There are no long-term safety studies that exist on either the safety or benefit of GMO ingredients. The only human feeding study ever conducted showed that foreign DNA was transferred into human gut bacteria. But there are many observational studies that have linked GMOs to increase in allergies, gut-related conditions, autism, autoimmune disease, infertility, birth defects. It goes on and on and on. So being aware that you need to check, is the food labeled as non-GMO? In South Africa, the main crops are corn and cotton and some others you can find online quite quickly and easily. Make sure that you aren't supporting those kind of companies. They are not interested in your health at all. Then we have just straight up chemicals. I mean, 1,000 new chemicals are added to people's diet every year. There are more than 700 synthetic chemicals in the average person's body. And there are 100,000 man-made chemicals in the environment. And this is since the 50s, really. About 70,000 new chemical compounds have been invented and dispersed, and only a fraction of these have been tested for human toxicity. And by fraction, I mean like less than 1%. All the details on that is in a great book called The 100-Year Lie by Randall Fitzgerald. And it's not just what we eat that puts a lot of chemicals into our body. Anytime you put anything on your skin, this is going to go into your system. Personal care products, around 884 chemicals are toxic in those, 146 cause tumors, the list goes on. So you need to make sure that if you're putting something in your skin, you need to be able to eat it. Otherwise, you're just heavily chemicalizing your system. So basically, we're in a situation where the results are quite terrible. You know, the last 50 to 80 years, 50 to 100 years of hominid life has been a deluge of body burden. And one of the most profound studies that shows this was done a few years ago, and it was looking at umbilical cord blood of babies. And what they found is that they tested around 400 chemicals, and 287 were detected in cord blood. And of these, 180 cause cancer in humans, 217 are toxic to the brain and nervous system, and 208 cause birth defects. Scientists referred to the presence of such toxins in the newborn as the body burden, and they said that if they tested for more, they would have discovered more. So when you're born with a body burden like that, it's no wonder that people are unhealthy today. It's no wonder that people are dying today from all sorts of diseases. If you want to be healthy, you need to be taking care of yourself and not chemicalizing yourself. Diseases are on the rise as a result of this. The US National Research Council reckons that 35 to 70% of all US cancer deaths are related to diet. And the lifetime risk for developing cancer is 45% for men and 39% for women. And this is a disease that 100 years ago almost didn't exist. Chronic diseases are estimated to account for almost 3/4 of all deaths by 2020. Chronic diseases are diseases of lifestyle. They're diseases that can be treated and cured from having a healthy lifestyle. So we can clearly see the continuum is broken. What we've been doing over the last 50 to 100 years is clearly damaging people. We need to stop it. We need to change that. We need to look at ways to get back to what we used to do. So if we think about food, food wasn't always grown with chemicals. So for example, the organic food movement is a great movement in the direction that food used to be available in. There was a study done at the University of Stuttgart a few years ago where they took tens of thousands of food samples, and the study was done over 10 years of fruits and vegetables and animal products, because they were really asking, can you even grow organic food in a world that's so profoundly polluted? And what they found is that organic fruits and vegetables had on average 180 times lower pesticide content. So that's 180 times, that's not percent, so that's huge. So if you're reducing your pesticide content, you're going to be able to make yourself way healthier already. And that's just buying different food. It's buying food that's organic. It's buying food that's not pesticide. And in most countries in the world, organic food is widely available. If certified organic food is not available, then certainly getting food from your local farmers market is available, and certainly growing your own food is available. So what I want to look into now are those elements of health that we've been exposed to for millennia. What do they look like? I've got a slide here for you to have a look at. I call this the elements of health house. It's very simple to understand. Let's start with fire. So fire in the system, this is movement. Your body is designed to move. Your ancestors were moving constantly, searching for food. in the environment, hunter-gatherers. And in today's world, sedentary lifestyles mean we sit a lot. Sitting is definitely not something we did much of through the past. So we need to keep moving. If you are bound to a desk throughout the day, you need to make sure you're getting up every 30 minutes, every 45 minutes, every hour, moving around. A mini trampoline is amazing for this. It takes up hardly any space. You can have it in your office or in your home, and doing just 30 seconds to a minute of trampolining is going to make you feel much better, and it's going to make you think clearer, and it's going to make you way more productive. So you can see that there written that in the movement side, we're looking at cardiovascular movement, and we're also looking at strength training. So cardiovascular movement is where you get your heart rate up and you start getting a sweat going. This is obviously key because your lymphatic system needs to be drained, and the toxins in those won't drain out unless you're actually moving. You think of movement as a pump for your lymphatic system. If you're sitting around all day, your lymph nodes are just filling up with poisons, but they're not having the opportunity to push them out for excretion. So you need to move, you need to do cardio. This is going for jogs, walks, even things like sauna can help it. Get moving, and regularly, at least every second or third day. Strength training is also important. As we age, our bone density declines, and to keep our bone density strong and high, you need to be pushing up against things. And this is so simple. Calcium supplements are not what you're looking for here. You're looking for strength training, pushing up against things with your muscles. This is where your body is going to strengthen and your bones are going to strengthen. This can be anything from yoga to weights. Free weights are fantastic. Even things like push-ups and sit-ups in your own home make a big difference. So that's movement, an absolutely essential one, and one that's often overlooked. Then let's have a little look at water. So drinking is clearly a very important part of health. What you're drinking day to day has a huge impact. Dehydration is one of the biggest contributors to inflammation. If your body is dehydrated and your cells don't have sufficient moisture and water, they cannot function effectively and they start to break down. So making sure you're drinking enough water is essential. Enough water depends on your level of exercise, the temperature of the room you're in. There are a lot of factors, but the easiest way to know if you're consuming enough water is to look at the color of your urine. If your urine is pretty clear, then you're drinking enough water. If your urine is dark, you need to drink more water. Simple, simple. Now, what kind of water do you want to be drinking? Again, let's look at our old hominid ancestor. They were drinking from streams and from rivers and from springs. Crystalline, pure, unpolluted water. So obviously this is what our body is designed to consume. So that's why I've written there clean as the primary and living as the secondary. So clean water. For most people in cities, when you open your tap, the water looks clean, but it's not actually that clean. Chemicals are added to it so that it doesn't, because it's going to sit in your pipe so that bacteria don't develop, things like chlorine. So you want to make sure you're filtering that water before you drink it. Household filters are very inexpensive, countertop filters even more so. If you don't have a filter filtering the water, then you are the filter, and the one is much easier and cheaper to change. So making sure your water is clean. Now, I've been drinking spring water for at least the last 15 years. Pretty much anywhere anyone lives, there is a spring near them, and with spring water, you're guaranteed of living water. This is water that hasn't sat in pipes and been pressurized and been chemicalized. It's water the way nature has provided it to us for millennia, the way our hominid ancestors drank water. I'm fortunate enough to live on a farm where I have quite a few springs, and they are gravity fed down to my house, so I just open my tap and I get spring water. But wherever you live, you can find out where there's a spring in your environment and you can drink spring water. People have such amazing health results when transitioning to natural waters. It's one of the most profound health things you can do, and you should be drinking water all day long. I mean, this is one of the areas you have such power and control over. So next, let's look at air. Breathing is clearly important for your health. If you stop breathing for only a few minutes, that's the end. And This shouldn't be something we'd have to think about, really. Breathing is an automatic process. But again, looking at the way we breathe and the type of air we breathe, today's world is very different to even a few hundred years ago. The air today is not as clean. There's a lot of smog and pollution in the air. You need to make sure that you're breathing clean air. Now, what cleans air? Plants clean air, trees clean air. So make sure that you either have a garden full of trees and plants, or that you make sure you get into forests and natural settings as often as possible. Obviously right now that's kind of illegal, so you'll have to wait till after the lockdown before you can do something that's actually healthy for you. But hopefully you've got some plants in your garden too. Breathing deeply is also an important point to consider. Because of pain and challenges in childhood, and particularly childbirth, it's been shown that quite often people breathe shallowly. This is a lot to do also with stress in our environment. If you are stressful throughout the day, you breathe shallow breathing. So you want to make sure that you're breathing deeply, fully into your abdomen so that you're getting maximum oxygen. If you find that you're tired throughout the day, I would recommend you do some breathing exercises first. 30 seconds to a minute of deep breathing, you will feel the results immediately. If you're still tired, drink some clean natural spring water. And if you're still tired, do a bit of exercise, mini trampoline, a few sit-ups, push-ups. And then if you're still tired, eat something. But almost always, if you try the first three, you'll notice that your energy levels rocket up pretty quickly. Then the last one we have there on the Elements of Health House is Earth, and Earth is all about food. So when talking about food, the three things that I've found that really move the needle on whether food is healthy for you or not is, firstly, is the food nutrient dense? Now, as we've discussed already, nutrient density is all about the amount of nutrients in the food. So we got micronutrients and we got macronutrients. Micronutrients are things like vitamins and minerals and phytonutrients, and then the macronutrients are things like protein, carbs, and fats. The micronutrients are the key here because the Western diet tends to be way too rich in macronutrients and very deficient in micronutrients. So you're looking for food that contain a high level of micronutrient density. So these foods are things like organic foods that are between 20 and 50 and 100 times more in micronutrient density. Some minerals like iron, things can have 1,000 times more iron in it if it's grown correctly in natural soils that haven't been damaged for decades. So making sure you choose organic food is a great way to improve your nutrient density. For me, what's even more beneficial or important there are your own homegrown foods. If you can grow your own food in a garden, if you don't have a large garden, you can just do trays. And if you don't do that, you can do sprouting. These foods provide you with massive amounts of nutrient density. You can control the amount of nutrients you put in the soils. You can put compost in the soils, and your plants will do amazingly well. And when you eat those, you feel it. There's a huge difference between garden grown food. I've been growing my own food for 15-20 years and I couldn't live without it. It is absolutely amazing, delicious and nourishing. The other type of food you can consume is wild food. This is one of the foods that are, or food classes that's very rarely eaten today. People are terrified of eating wild food. There are poisonous things out there that can kill you, and they are. So be aware in the case of mushrooms that when you're consuming wild mushrooms, you know exactly which ones you're consuming. But there are other things that are wild that you can eat, things like wild greens. Just doing a simple Google search will show you what is edible in the wild greens department. I love to import wild foods and packaging. It's one of my loves in my brand, Soaring Free Superfoods. If we then also look at the other two things related to food, you've got clean food and you've got undamaged food. So again, here, as I spoke about at the beginning, we have a lot of chemicals sprayed onto foods, put into foods, and that's just in the growing process. Once the food is then processed through factories, they add flavorants and colorants and preservatives and a whole host of other chemicals you do not want to be eating, and certainly your ancestors never ate, so your body doesn't know what to do with them, and it causes damage to your system. So make sure the food is clean. And again, I'm not talking about whether you pick a carrot and you got some soil on it. That's good dirt. That's the kind of dirt you want to be consuming. The dirt you don't want to be consuming are the things you can't even see. So again, make sure that the food is either organic and or homegrown, then you can be sure that it's clean. And or if you buy it from a farmer's market, you speak to the farmer, you say, hi, do you put chemicals on your plants? And they'll tell you, hopefully. And then undamaged. So if you've taken all the time and efforts and spent the money on organic food and or grown your own food, and you then put it in the microwave oven and nuke it, you're going to destroy most of the nutritional value. So I've been recommending eating low temperature processed foods for many, many years. My first book, Rawlicious, is all about the raw food diet, which is about eating mostly raw foods. Raw foods contain all those nutrients perfectly intact. The higher the temperature that food is cooked at, the more nutrients are destroyed. So lower temperature cooking is always better. I like my steamed sweet potato and roast sweet potato as much as the next person, but you can roast sweet potato at 100 degrees Celsius and it's delicious and soft. If you cook your food over 120 degrees Celsius, chemicals start being formed, poisons, like acrylamide. Acrylamide is a known human carcinogen and is formed particularly in baked foods at higher temperature baking. So just reducing your cooking temperatures, make sure that you aren't damaging that food, so that you're getting most of that nutrient density into you. Okay, so that's the elements of health house from a food level and other body elements. I'm going to be looking at thoughts and emotions in a later session, maybe in 3 weeks' time. We might touch on it next week. What I found fascinating is that, I've been talking about the poisons of the palate for many, many years on my courses. These are foods that I don't even recommend, that I don't think are foods. They're not foods at all. Frankenfoods, chemically produced foods, these things cause a lot of the damage when it comes to food and health. And there was a study that was recently released that actually looked at, they called them ultra-processed foods, and these are things like bread, breakfast cereals, pizza, chocolate bars, fruit drinks, cakes, puddings, alcoholic drinks, pies, ready-to-eat foods. I mean, it's quite a long list. And it's all the stuff that most Western diet followers consume on a day-to-day basis. So to most people, this is considered food. The research findings found that if you ate 4 or more servings of ultra-processed food per day, you had 62% more chance of dying over the 2 decades of the study. So that's a huge change. They found that each additional serving of ultra-processed food increases your chances of premature death by 18%. So again, just not consuming junk food is a huge benefit for your health. Even a 10% increase of these ultra-processed foods in your diet causes 12% more cardiovascular disease, 13% more coronary heart disease, 11% more cerebrovascular disease, 10% more cancers, and that includes breast cancer. So just there alone, you can lower your risk of disease very quickly and very easily. Here's the slide that shows you the list of those ultra-processed foods, so you know how to avoid them. You can find the study on Google, or you can just take a quick screenshot of these and try and avoid them as far as possible. Now, what's amazing about this, most of these foods, or many of these foods, you could make healthy. You could make healthier breads using sourdough cultures and whole grains. You could make healthier pizzas. I mean, in our book, Rawlicious, we have raw food pizza recipes. We show you how to do that. Chocolate bars. You can definitely have healthy chocolate bars. We produce some of the healthiest chocolate bars in the world that are actually full of medicinal herbal components. Fruit drinks, juicing your own at home, easy. And you can go down the list. Basically, mayonnaise. We have a recipe in our superfoods book called Bayonnaise, where we use baobab, and it's absolutely delicious. I don't think I can do much for chicken nuggets. That's pretty hard, or fish nuggets, and certainly not microwave foods, and artificial sweeteners are definitely a poison. So many of these, there's literally nothing you can do about. Just avoid them at all costs. But the ones that you can find healthier recipes for, use healthier recipes. And you can continue eating them. So what else have I got? Here we go. Let's have a look at this one. So if we look at what it is that we can add into our diet, because you've got taking out of your diet, but then you've also got adding into your diet. So I like doing both. Take out the stuff that's most dangerous and most toxic to your health, and then add in the stuff that's going to be most beneficial for your health. So this is the list that I recommend, and a lot of this comes out of our book Rawlicious. Fruits, we're looking at fruits that are lower in sugar and higher in nutrient density. So an orange is lovely. An organic orange is even better. You'll taste the difference immediately. But if you eat something like a pomegranate, that's profoundly nutrient dense. So just choose the less sweet and the more nutrient dense fruits. Vegetables of all kinds are all good. Fantastic studies. Your mom was right. Eat your vegetables, definitely. Sprouts. This is one of the greatest ways that you can take control of your health again, growing your own food. Sprouts are so easy to grow at home. Glass jar method is my favorite. We detail it in the book, and we also have it online for you to do. Nuts and seeds of all different kinds. Just make sure they're fresh. They also have amazing health benefits. Sea vegetables are one of the key areas that you can get nutrients, particularly minerals. Seaweeds grow in the greatest mineral soup in the world, the ocean. So consuming more sea vegetables is a great way of getting it in. If you eat sushi, nori sheets are seaweeds. You can get kelp powder. Kelp is one of the cheapest supplements you can buy in a health food store, and it has profoundly healing effects. Garden herbs of various kinds are profoundly nutritious and healing, and those are very easy to grow at home. I make myself a herb seasoning or salt mix where I take all the different herbs from my garden and I dehydrate it and powderize it, and I use that on a daily basis. Superfoods are all sorts of foods from around the world that have profound nutrient density. I'll talk more about them next week. And then fermented foods. Fermented foods are just getting more and more amazing research done on them every year. This is a food that's not only feeding you, but also feeding your good bacteria in your gut. Those guys are responsible for a large part of your health and wellness. So eating things like sauerkraut on a daily basis, kimchi, kefirs, many different types of fermented foods. Make sure you're getting those in daily for digestive health. And if your digestive system is working, your absorption of all these nutrients are going to be much better. So I recommend you add 4 different types of food into your diet. It's very easy. Add a smoothie in, add a juice in, add a salad in, add a snack in. So smoothies, these are pretty easy. I mean, for me, this is the true version of fast food. You get a blender of any kind, NutriBullets or a Vitamix or a little hand stick blender. They'll all work. You add various ingredients, the ones we've listed here on the left. You can add fruits in, you can add vegetables, you can add sprouts, nuts, seeds, seaweed, all of them, in various amounts. Obviously, there are lots of recipes out there so that you don't make a complete disaster blend to begin with. And then it takes 5, maybe 10 minutes to make a smoothie and make a liter of it so that you've got it throughout the day. And there you've got true fast food. It's pre-digested through blending it, and you're getting a massive amount of nutrient density in there. Juices. For juicing, I highly recommend you start with green vegetable juice. Fruit juices are just too sweet, so make sure. You also want to look at adding in salads. Salads are a fantastic way of getting in micronutrients. Green leafy vegetables are fantastically rich in micronutrients. And then snacking, making sure your snacking choices are healthy ones. And this is as easy as just choosing better options, like I spoke earlier about. If you're going to eat a chocolate bar, make sure it's a superfood chocolate bar with no sugar in it. If you're going to be eating a packet of crisps, make sure that you're eating something like kale chips instead. So there are lots of healthier snack options to choose from. What else have we got? So if you want to look at other aspects of food, whether you eat animal or plant food is entirely your choice. One of the things to be aware of, though, is that plant foods do provide certain nutrients that you need. People generally eat too little plant foods, particularly micronutrient density rich plant foods. Animal foods are also important. There are nutrients you need in animal foods too. I'll show you a list here. This is the main things you're going to need from plant foods. Things like vitamin C, essential for maintaining a healthy immune system. Carotenoids, allele vegetable nutrients. I'm not going to run through them all. It gets quite technical. And then if you're looking at animal foods, this is the list of things you'd be getting from animal foods. Obviously, you have to be far more even careful about the animal foods you choose and the plant foods, because animals are higher up on the food chain, so they tend to be concentrating poisons. So making sure that you are definitely only eating organic or wild animal foods are a very good idea to keep yourself healthy. So on from that, for me, there's something called the Axis of Health, which is just the simplified version of everything I've spoken about. This is what it looks like. You're basically eating high quality food, that's organic, homegrown food, nutrient-rich food, clean food, and at the same time, you're reducing the processing and cutting out the poisons so that you're not chemically damaging yourself. So this is low temperature cooking, no chemicals, no refined foods, no factory farming. That axis can make a huge difference to your health just doing those things. So if that's one slide you remember, that's fantastic. So this evening I shared with you a first part of what we need to do to take radical responsibility for our health. To be perfectly honest with you, I'm not worried about coronavirus at all. Because in the world of healthy food and herbal potent plant medicine, the foundation of preventative and integrative approach to health is assured. You look after yourself, you eat well, you exercise, you do all the things I said, and you're going to be healthy. It would take some kind of crazy, nasty, mean-ass virus to kill you, and coronavirus is definitely not that. Even official statistics say that it really only affects the elderly and the sick, usually together. I also recommend you just look into some ideas other than mainstream media. One of the people I love to listen to is Dr. Shiva Ayadurai. Have a look at what he wrote to President Donald Trump in his letter. You can just Google Dr. Shiva and Trump letter and you'll hear what he recommends for coronavirus. More than the virus, though, I'm having way more of a concern over the effects on small and medium-sized businesses. For businesses to close for weeks, even months, is catastrophic. We're really lucky that our business is able to stay open during this time, so we can keep getting superfoods to your door, because I understand a lot of people aren't getting to stores. But we're already in our own business experiencing major repercussions over this lockdown process. Port closures, shipping delays. Most of the lines that we sell are running out of stock at a staggering rate, and there's literally nothing we can do because we can't get stuff in. So more and more health shops, are going to start running out of stock. What we're trying to do is to make sure that you guys can still get stuff from us on our website. So definitely check that out. We're going to be supporting you guys with some of these fantastic products by sending you coupons. And for anyone who orders more than 1,000 Rand or more, you can even get some Super Herb chocolate bars thrown in as a thank you for watching this and for supporting us. We've got a batch of Super Herb chocolate bars that weren't quite made correctly, and so they're in beautiful gold foil wrapping, and they are absolutely delicious and healthy for you. And if you're going to reach for a chocolate bar in a time of stress, I can highly recommend that you reach for one of our chocolate bars. So thank you all for listening this far. Hope you got something out of this talk. Our next event is going to be next week, Thursday. Hopefully we won't have internet issues again, but the cables apparently under the sea are broken, so maybe they'll be fixed by then. We will make the recording available to you guys and to your friends and family for a week with a private link which will message you. Stay tuned via our WhatsApp Soaring Free Health Line group, because there we'll be giving you most of the direct info. We'll also be posting a challenge in our feed after this, something that you can do to really action what I've said today and get inspired to be more healthy. If you want to continue the discussion about the things I spoke about, check out our Facebook group. And obviously for recipes, have a look at our 2 books, Rawlicious and Superfoods. And you can also follow our Instagram account. We share a lot of health tips on there, new product launches, and loads of great content to our community. So thank you all for joining me. Those who are left, I hope you picked up the end bit of this. As I've said, we have recorded it, so we will make it available again. And we look forward to seeing you again in a week's time. Have a fantastic week and enjoy your weekend.